So today we're in Edinburgh once again, and I'm not so far away from home. Joe's a wee bit further away from home on the other side of the city, so I haven't had to walk or take the car so far. So we're on Queen Street here, and we're going to talk about some of the architecture here on Queen Street. Queen Street is part of what we call the Georgian New Town, and the New Town of Edinburgh started in 1767. There was a lot of very bad, poor, dirty conditions in the old town. It was very congested, and there was a real wake-up call to the powers that be to make a more safe city, but it happened to be the very wealthy who moved here first of all. So what we'll do is we'll take a little walk down and have a look at the architecture here, and we're getting a bit of changing colours as the seasons begin to move on.
We've got hello from Buenos Aires, hello from Canada, hello from Stockholm.
Thanks very much. That's great. We've got our international audience now. I'd like to show you the architecture here. These two buildings, and one of them's got scaffolding in front of it, unfortunately, but we can show you the one without scaffolding. And these are number 66 and 67 Queen Street. The connection here is that these are some of the first buildings of the 18th century New Town of Edinburgh, and they're beautiful survivors. And in terms of Georgian architecture, you can see 3 stories high was the kind of rule, unwritten rule if you like, to have a pleasant aspect, and it's quite understated compared to Victorian architecture, which came later. It was very understated, but you can see little pilasters, little false balconies, if you like, just under the windows at the top. But what I'd like us to have a look at here is the pediment and pillars on the doorway here. Now, connected with these buildings were a couple of masons called John and James Williamson in the 18th century. And the interesting thing about them is that they travelled to America, to the United States, and had a hand in building the White House. That was the first White House before the English burnt part of it down. And they were...
The British.
The British, sorry. That was
we were
a
partly
complete
responsible.
slip of the tongue. My great apologies to our English neighbours about that. Yes, the British, did burn down an earlier version of the White House, which was kind of George Washington had the connections with. So they went over there, and they had a lot to do with the coating of whiteness that you can see in the White House today, and that is very traditional building coating that is used up in the Highlands of Scotland. If you've been to the Isle of Skye, you'll see a lot of the houses are in this white stucco kind of effect, and that was all to do with stopping water penetration. So they carried the Scottish tradition of rough casting to the White House in America, so we get everywhere as Scots.
And you'll see a lot of the distilleries up north are also done in white as well.
Yeah.
And they used to say that that's so you could see them in the dark. In the olden days, you could see they stood out in the moonlight if you were going up north. But it's a good. It actually sucks the moisture out of the stone and prevents it from going in. Yeah.
I don't know if we can get a little view of this, but if Joe can maybe get a little look closer, you can see the commemorative plaque here. So you've got Scottish stonemasons John and James Williamson worked on this building. In 1794 they travelled to Washington DC and were instrumental in the construction of the White House. And you can see the White House there, a little mini White House there in relief.
Scots get everywhere, don't they?
They do. We influence so many things.
What is it they say? Was like us, nobody, and they're all deed.
That's right. And if we take a little scan at the lamp fitting here, again, you can see this is actually quite different to some of the later external lamps in the New Town, because this is more like the original thing, where there would be a glass shade. Of course is not in here, but it would originally be oil and then gas, and then it would be changed as time went on to electricity. And we still keep the old style of lamp standard today. can see all the different classical decorative features on it as well.
Mike, I just got asked if I enjoyed my holiday.
Oh, nice.
I had a thoroughly good time up and discovering places I'd never been to before. So up around the northeast, Aberdeenshire, which I didn't realise was so agricultural. But the food was fantastic, I have to say. Yeah. I mean, the fish, straight off the boat, onto the plate. Oh, it was lovely. I tried all the different food groups.
Fantastic.
Anything with gills and legs and wings. Wow. I tried them all.
I'm so envious. I love fish so much as well. So we're coming close here to this old established business here called Stuart Christie, and it claims to be the oldest gents tailor in Edinburgh, and as you can see the dates there, 1720, and you can see the sort of stylish apparel that you have. You've got ladies wear also, and I'm just looking at this, and maybe I should change my image a bit. I'm a painter, and this seems to be the way you would paint if you were
looks like
buying your clothes here and there.
The Rive Gauche on the Seine with his Breton sweater there.
There you go.
And his palettes. Little French bottle of wine.
Curiosities. A telephone box. Again, a symbol of Britain. Many people who come to visit Britain also will like to get their photographs taken. But this one is very special, as you can see, tag and donate. And if people wish to donate to Save the Children, which is a great cause, then they can do it. And this telephone box has got full of, it's a cabinet of curiosities. That's how I like to describe it. You can see all the different bits and pieces in there.
It's been repurposed.
Yeah.
And you can get the key from the clothes shop, and you can come and explore this little telephone box.
Yeah, I can see a camera there that I used to have when I was a child, so it makes me, well, I feel, you're only as old as you feel, aren't you? Yeah. So over there you can see the greenery. That is Queen Street Gardens, and that is private gardens, and these are attached to the people, for the people who live on these streets, like on Queen Street, which we're walking along at the moment, and they do not have their own personal garden spaces. And when they were planning the new town of Edinburgh, it was said there had to be 10% of land which was left for green space. So that was a very forward-looking idea, all to do with human needs and enlightened thought, and this whole city of Edinburgh is full of enlightened thought from the past. So we're going up Castle Street. We've just come off Queen Street, and this is one of the vertical streets, I like to say, in this grid iron system of architecture. Queen Street is a horizontal street, and I think we've got the Spanish consulate.
Spanish consulate opposite here.
Just over there.
Por los amigos español.
The flag's flying. Now, we cannot have embassies here in Scotland because although we are a country, we are not an independent sovereign state. So, strictly speaking, technically, we are a region of the United Kingdom, although many people are not very happy with that, especially just now. But anyway, consulates
and foreign policy has not devolved to the nations, to the home nations, yet.
Not yet, not yet. So we'll move up this Castle Street. Why is it called Castle Street? Because Edinburgh Castle is at the southern end of it, as you can see. Now these are just amazing houses which would have been residential originally in the 18th, 19th centuries, but as time went on, commerce caught up with the wealthy residents because many businesses that practiced out of the old town of Edinburgh, that's where the Parliament, the courts and the practice of law would have been traditionally, well, they followed the professionals over here and opened up their businesses. So today you can see like various businesses. We've got solicitors, quite a lot, estate agents, accountants, medical people, very wealthy people who have inherited wealth from their connections with the nobility. We'll take a little scan also along that street, which is, we've got different sections. This is called Hill Street. But originally, when this new town was being built in 1767, the whole of this street was called Thistle Street, all the way from St Andrew's Square on the east end right up to Charlotte Square. But they decided, I don't know for whatever reason, to change that so that they have got part of Thistle Street is now Hill Street, and another part of it is Young Street. And Young, the name Young was John Young, who was the architect who was responsible for the planning here.
So we've got a question, are they flats or offices? Some of these are still apartments, especially on the upper levels. A lot of them on the ground level and the first floor, so underground on the first floor are businesses. But there are the occasional townhouse here, which is generally converted into hotels or Airbnbs or bed and breakfasts. So,
yeah, we're getting more of these sort of self-catering residential suites, which is big business here. Back to 1811, the area is into this back street area, which is Young Street. And on Young Street is this building. Now, if you notice, it's called the Oxford Bar. Now, why is it called the Oxford Bar when it's in Edinburgh? Well, it's because the Oxford University Press used to have an outlet here in Young Street. Now, the building where the bar is goes back to 1811, and it really was built for residential use, but then it quickly became commercial, and it was a pub. Way back, as far as the 19th century, it was a place where you could go and drink beer. Okay, now it briefly became a confectioner's, a place that you would go, a shop to buy sweets and stuff like that. But then it reverted to a pub later on. Now it has quite a history because it's in a secluded area of Edinburgh, and many people who want the peace and quiet, and they would like an authentic, what they think is an authentic bar. And this is very authentic because if you go in the door here, you go into a corridor, right? I'll just get a bit closer. You go into an enclosed corridor, and it's what we call a compartmentalised layout. In there, there's little separate rooms off this corridor where people would go and drink alcohol traditionally. But as time has gone on, there's been slight changes where they've opened up the area on the left into a more open plan bar area, but you can still experience what we call little snugs. Areas, little places you can go for an intimate chat if you want to talk about some important stuff and you don't necessarily want anybody to hear, then you can still do that a little bit too. Now, it is also known as a place where the local police force would come and drink beer. Once again, maybe because they thought maybe not be recognised so much. It's a bit hidden away here. And also it was a hangout for poets. And one poet in particular is called Sidney Goodsir Smith. Now, you've probably never heard of him, but he was a New Zealander. And his father was a top forensic scientist. And his father's work brought him here to Scotland. And as soon as he was here in Scotland, he got really smitten by the Scots culture, by the Scots language, and he saw himself as an artist, a painter, but also a poet. And he would meet with his fellow poets in this bar here called the Oxford Bar, and one was Hugh McDermott, and the other one was Norman McCaig. And they had a little clique, a little circle, and they would just love to come here. If they weren't here, they'd be hooking up with other poets like George Mackay Brown, and also the other poets, Sorley MacLean, another one as well. And the list goes on, because during the 50s and 60s, poetry about Scottish nationalism as well because post-war many people were being affected by bad conditions, finding, after the war, shortages and overcrowding, and social conditions were quite bad. So you had some of them poets leaning to the left, especially people like Hugh McDermott, and this leaning to the left was a kind of communist sort of thread that linked up with their ideas of separation. And that was at the time of the 50s and 60s. So, but you're probably, if you know a lot about this pub here, the Oxford Bar, may wonder, I'm leaving out somebody. And that's somebody.
A few people have already mentioned.
We've done this
Some
deliberately.
people are jumping the gun.
We've done this deliberately.
Yeah.
Is Ian Rankin. Okay, so Ian Rankin, he started going here because he knew a friend from Edinburgh University, another student who worked part-time in the bar here. And he liked this place then because it was very quiet. It didn't have a jukebox, right? And it didn't have a TV that was on all the time. And generally, it was a good place to be creative and gather your thoughts and stuff like that as well. It did not have all the bells and whistles that other pubs would be having in the 1980s. And he was influenced by a writer called William McIlvenney. And we have got here in Scotland what we call tartan noir, which is Scottish crime fiction. And William McIlvenney had his character Jack Laidlaw, based very much in Glasgow, solving mysteries and so on, and very much influencing Ian Rankin. And he made up his own character called John Rebus, Inspector John Rebus, who he had coming to this pub here. Right, so Rebus, what is a rebus? If you think back to one of our other tours, the one of Craigmillar Castle, we showed you a rebus, R-E-B-U-S, which is a visual puzzle. It's a combination of elements, and if you put them together, you can get the name. So we had Preston, the Preston family. So we had a printing press, and we had a tun, as in making of beer and other things in terms of barrel measurement and stuff like that. So that is the name, Inspector Rebus. And he started writing these Rebus books with no thought that they were going to be the sensation that they were going to be. And he didn't really see himself as a crime writer. He'd gone to Edinburgh University also. He'd been influenced by many people, including Muriel Spark. In fact, he wrote a thesis on Muriel Spark. So he was quite wide-ranging in his interests. But then he started to concentrate on this character because he was so much influenced by William McIlvenney. So he still comes here, Ian Rankin, and it is a favourite hangout of his, but also other stars come here too. In fact, Pierce Brosnan, when they were making the Eurovision film, happened to pop in here also. So it's got a huge
That's a great film,
reputation.
the Eurovision film.
It is. I enjoyed it.
It's camptastic.
Yes, camptastic. And it's a small, hidden place, but it's got a massive reputation. And if people are writing to Ian Rankin, his fan base, they send it to Ian Rankin, care of the Oxford Bar. Now, I've got to tell you, what is Ian Rankin doing at the moment? Well, William McIlvenney sadly died in 2015, and his wife picked up some unfinished manuscripts because William was going to write another book with Jack Laidlaw, the detective. So Ian Rankin currently, during lockdown, has been finishing the book. And the book, we can get a look at it, it's called The Dark Remains, and Ian Rankin will be, in September, sitting down and answering questions and talking about this latest book. Okay, so the Oxford Bar and Ian Rankin, yeah.
And continuing on the Scottish noir genre of books, because Val McDermott lives in Edinburgh as well, and she's a big influence. And I've just finished two books, one after the other, they call themselves Ambrose Parry. Now, Ambrose Parry is a nom de plume, and it's Christopher Brookmeyer and his wife have collaborated, and it's all about it's more Gothic. It's Edinburgh Gothic, and it's based around the discovery of chloroform. So it's Simpson, Young Simpson. It's all about, based in the house, which is on Queen Street as well, and it's all about solving murders. So this whole area of Edinburgh has got a lot of detective work going on. So if you haven't seen Ambrose Parry, I would highly recommend it. If you're really into your Edinburgh Gothic and you want to really go into what Edinburgh was like in the days of the carriages and gaslights and when the prostitution was legal and the whole thing, I would highly recommend looking at the books, two books by Ambrose Parry.
Yeah, and not forgetting that Ian Rankin's detective, John Rebus, actually comes into the Oxford Bar, which actually figures in the detective novels.
Absolutely.
I haven't read any of Ian Rankin's, but I'm just about to read it one
I've read
a
quite
book.
a few.
So, especially if I've been talking about him, so it's getting me enthused. Yeah.
And can I just add about the Oxford Bar? Because we just got asked, somebody just asked you, have you frequented this bar? I have, and I think you have as well. It's a great bar for conversation because you're so close to each other that when your conversation starts, you very quickly get involved in conversations at other tables. And it's all good camaraderie.
Yeah.
But it has got a sister bar on the same street called the Cambridge Bar.
Yeah.
Which is just down the street.
Yeah.
Only a couple of 100 yards away.
It's great. And you're talking about going back to 1980s, before, well, just on the cusp of Ian Rankin starting to write his books, there was a publican here called William Ross, or Willie Ross, and he was very much a traditional Edinburgh publican. He was a bit left-leaning. He was a Scottish nationalist. He is the sort of person that would close the pub at 10 o'clock, even though they were allowed to stay open later when the lawmaking was there. And he would be like one of these strong characters. But interestingly enough, today, you can see that the licensee is a lady.
A woman.
Kirsty Graham.
Kirsty Graham.
Yeah.
I mean, so many pubs in Edinburgh have got so many stories as well. We could do a whole tour in Edinburgh pubs. That's probably not a bad idea. And we'll have a drink in every single one of them, Mike.
We'll do that next time. That's what I'll start doing in the winter. And
we'll do it in the winter one. We'll take a little snifter in each bar we go to.
You can come with us, folks. And
you can
have
enjoy the scene.
Your own virtual tipple.
Yeah.
Those people who've been over to Scotland, or maybe had Joe and I as guides, they can maybe get that, whatever at Glenmorangie that's hiding away in the cupboard, or maybe not hiding away in the cupboard, and maybe a good chance to just crack it open and join us.
And we've got Marjorie saying he wasn't very keen on, Willie Ross wasn't very keen on letting women in the bar, because she remembers that from Edinburgh as well. That was quite common in a lot of places in Edinburgh, and that's why a lot of the snugs were developed, was to let the ladies.
Absolutely, because things have changed, and I think the other pubs we were talking about, like Sandy Bell's as well, had a bit of a similar environment in that it was quite quiet. There would be no slot machine, there would be no jukebox, there would be conversation, because that would be the origins of these pubs going back to the 18th century, 19th century, where people would think, oh, we've got to talk about this important thing, I've got to get together with my friends or colleagues, and it's quite private, but we can just nip down to the Oxford Bar and have a little chat, and nobody will be able to hear what we're talking about.
And I think it's also fair to remind people that Edinburgh was the first city in the world to get the UNESCO title of the City of Literature. So hence,
absolutely,
there's a good chance you'll bump into an author.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to take a scan over here, and this is another literary connection here, and we have got Sir Walter Scott's house. Now, Walter Scott, he was born in Edinburgh, a place called College Wynd up in the Old Town, and he moved into different places. He moved into George Square, which is more on the south side, and then he moved to another house here in Castle Street, and then shortly after he got married and he started having a family, moved into this house here, which is 39 Castle Street. Now, I've got a picture here, which I'm going to show you.
Well, you're getting out. Somebody said, are women welcome into the Oxford Bar now? Yep, more than welcome, and it's a woman who runs the bar. So
yeah, in fact, Ian Rankin, I was reading, has had huge regrets because he was wanting to buy it. And he said he missed the boat on that one and buying the Oxford Bar because he thought it was such a good business opportunity, especially during coronavirus. So there you go, you let it go. So what I've got here, if we get it in the shade maybe so that you can see it, this is an engraving by William Mallard Turner, who is a very well-known British artist, and he was a great friend of Sir Walter Scott. And if you can look here, you can see number 39, Castle Street. And this was a dedication because these two men were collaborating on a book. Now, this has actually got me thinking of what Joe and I do, because they thought, for people who cannot come to Scotland, we want to tap into what they will get from us writing and illustrating Scotland. And this is an example of this during the friendship of Turner and Sir Walter Scott. Now, Turner, and I love this saying, he said he thought the pencil could render Scotland better than the pen. Wow. And that was a bit of a swipe at the writers, because of course Scotland, and Edinburgh in particular, is a well-known place for literature, for writing. Anyway, I can explain the layout of the house. And he came to live here, and they finally got the dates right, because they used to have the dates above the window. You can see the bow-shaped ground floor here with the three windows on the right-hand side there. From 1802 to 1826. So he was in his early 30s, and he was a great dog lover. Sir Walter Scott, he always had dogs, and he would have at least one dog with him if you met him in the street. And when he was here, he had a dog, and it was a bull terrier called Camp. And he would not go anywhere without Camp. He would be writing, Camp would be sitting at his feet, he would be relaxing, maybe sitting in his armchair, Camp would be in his lap, and this dog. And when the dog died, Sir Walter Scott that evening had a dinner engagement, and he sent a message to the hostess, it was the lady, and he says, sorry, I cannot come, my best friend has died. So he was just a huge, huge dog lover. And we cannot see this because it's a private house, but if you were to go inside here, and towards the back there is Walter Scott's study overlooking the little garden area. There's a gravestone to Camp in the back garden there, which can still be seen today. Okay. So Walter Scott, 26 novels, 10 poetry books, Ivanhoe, Rob Roy, the Waverley novels. It goes on and on and on.
Heart of Midlothian.
Heart of Midlothian, can't leave that one out. Kenilworth, and huge, prolific author, very successful in his own time. He also had a stately home at Abbotsford in the Scottish borders. Now, if you look at the bottom with the 39, the door 39, you may wonder, what did he actually own in this property? Well, today, the property is divided up into several different ownership apartments. He would own the basement below street level. He would own the first floor, and this would be the dining room with the 3 bay windows. He would also own the next level up to halfway along. So if you see the pilasters, like these pillars, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the first floor up, it would be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows on that level would be owned by Sir Walter Scott. So basement, first floor as well, and halfway. And on the other side, at number 43, I think it is.
Yep.
That would be similar. They would own that side of the property in the same way as he did, in a symmetrical fashion. If you look in the middle, 41, that stair goes up to the top flat and to the attic area. So there is actually different spaces here today, but it's all been sectioned off, because even today his cellar area has been sold off as a state-of-the-art residence, self-contained, and you're actually talking in excess of about 700,000 offers over. In fact, something like that's probably going to go for about 1.5 to 2 million, and even more than that.
Yeah. Because
not just the Historical Association, Edinburgh is to die for just now. People cannot get enough of it. They want to buy property here, and it's seen as a huge investment. So Sir Walter Scott's house, his town house, he had to sell it because, unfortunately, and it was in 1826, his publisher and printer went bankrupt, and he went down with his publisher and printer, but he had a safeguard in that he'd had a beautiful country house which he had built in the Borders, so he was able to retreat there. But he suffered, and he didn't want to leave this place.
Just going into number 39.
You can maybe get a wee bit closer. Have a closer look.
But he's stuck with his publisher though, because the publisher's tomb down in Canongate is quite ornate, and the money was for the tomb was actually paid for by Walter Scott as well. So although he went back to writing quite a lot to clear the debts.
Yeah, he was very loyal. And I mean, that's the loyalty of people, going back these days, to these days. He was known as the Wizard of the North also. And he was distraught when he had to leave here. This was where he had brought up his children, been living here for about 24 years, a big chunk of when he was in his prime. I think of the prime of Mr. Brody, but when it was his peak of writing, and so it was a major part of his life. And you can see down the stairs, this was recently up for sale last year. That would have been the servants' quarters, but it's all been converted into state-of-the-art living accommodation.
Number 39A.
Number 39. So we're going to continue our wander a bit. And we're moving into a busier bit in that we're coming up onto George Street, named after George III. Is the monarch on the throne at the time.
Just want to point out the top of this building here, Mike, but there are some very nice penthouse restaurants here in Edinburgh with some absolutely spectacular views. So when you're on George Street, it's not just to look down on the ground level, and we'll see a few restaurants who've got their tables outside, but also some really nice rooftop restaurants as well. And they're particularly good if you get a table for the Edinburgh fireworks.
Yeah, that would be such a high-in-demand table.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at these people. I mean, they're getting fantastic views right over the new town of Edinburgh on this side, and then on the other side they've got the old town. Bird's eye view, what more could you ask? And look at today, the sun is shining, blue skies, it's perfect for walking. I just like to say also,
and you get your table on the north side of the street because you'll be nice and warm in the sunshine.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely in the sun. Yeah, other things. And his general interests took him into St Andrews University because he
can catch him here.
Is Thomas Chalmers, or the Reverend Thomas Chalmers. He was born in Anstruther in Fife as a young man, and he trained for the ministry. He was also, surprisingly enough, interested in mathematics and science and all sorts of subjects. And initially his ideas of being a minister or being a preacher, and he was a great preacher. He was a huge orator, a pulpit orator. His sermons were just very, very powerful. But he believed initially that they were for Sunday consumption, and that it was a profession of being a minister, and other days in the week he would be doing other things. And his general interests took him into St Andrews University because he actually went to Glasgow, first of all. After he trained to be a minister, one of his first charges was in Glasgow, in St John's Church, in the poorest area of Glasgow. And this was post-industrialisation. This was when there was a lot of industries. The place was very dirty, very unhealthy, and overcrowded, and he had an empathy with the poor people. And he believed then that his ministry had to envelop their problems, that Christianity had to be taken into every household. So he had been a bit disconnected in his thoughts about what a cleric, what a minister should be early on. And then he repositioned himself, and he became the chair of moral philosophy at St Andrews University. And then after that, he engaged with a breakaway group because the Church of Scotland was seen as being dominated by civil society. And the people in charge were patrons, sometimes not even churchgoers, who would decide on what minister would be in charge of what church. And he was what was called the moderator, which is the high head one of the Free Church of Scotland. And this had an ambition of creating a lot of churches and parishes, and the number of people in the parish should be limited to 2,000 people. Now the Scottish government and British government hated that. They thought financially you just couldn't cope with that. And he led a breakaway movement in 1843, which was called the Disruption, when there was a separation within the Church of Scotland into the Free Church. So Thomas Chalmers, he did a lot of good work, and he just wanted to give a voice to the people who were hugely oppressed, hugely affected, hugely poor, in difficult circumstances all over the place. So he was lauded by one William Wilberforce. And William Wilberforce had something to do with the anti-slavery, but he was also an independent member of Parliament who was all to do with political freedoms and you name it. And he said, that this man was a really great man. He had a great feeling for Thomas Chalmers. Now, many people will just wander past this today, but of the many statues in Edinburgh, perhaps this is one of the most significant to what Scotland had been back then.
And it was all part of the reform movement of the 1800s, because, again, the landed gentry and the new class, the new upper classes were taking over the control of what was a church of the people. They were trying to make it a classed society. Whereas he came in and said, this is not going to happen. People make the decisions as to who elects the ministers, not the money bags. It's the people. And it kept that flat, structured society within the Presbyterian Church.
That's it. It was a difficult ask, was this Free Church, and for all sorts of different reasons. And it was seen as quite an idealist idea. And it sadly, I shouldn't say this, I don't want to take a position one way or another, because as a guide I must be neutral, but it didn't actually survive. And it came back to be within the umbrella of the Church of Scotland.
But it shook the church to the foundations, though. I mean, it did cause a radical change with it. It did shake the church, and it made people realise that the people are not going to put up with that. And there was a lot of fear about not only religious uprising, but political uprising in Scotland at the time. So it went through occupations and it went through the churches. So people stood up and realised, we need to deal with this.
Yeah, exactly. And he was an evangelist. Okay, we couldn't have called him that in his early career, and when he was seeing himself as a professional minister who only composed a sermon on a Sunday, even as late as that, to be presented to the people. Evangelism was also presenting, and it was to speak it to people and strike a chord with people, not just talk for talk's sake. It had deep spiritual meaning. And I think I've just been hit by something which is maybe a seagull.
I think we'll move on from a seagull here. I did notice, I think it was a close thing. Venezuela.
Oh, welcome.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Hola.
¿De dónde en Venezuela?
Caracas.
Caracas. ¿Los amigos?
Yeah. Hola.
¿De dónde en Venezuela?
Caracas.
Caracas. ¿Los amigos?
Yeah, they're my friends.
From?
They're a friend here. Most of them,
Okay.
two Spanish and one.
Okay, come on, ladies. We saw you posing. Come on, give us a pose. So where are you from? This is live on Facebook. So
I was born here.
right. And what's your name?
Mariam.
Mariam. And so you've been the tour guide, or you've been
live here.
You all live here.
Yeah.
Okay, you all studying here.
Yeah.
And your name is
Christabel.
Christabel.
Yeah.
Are you from Edinburgh as well?
Yeah, I was born in London though.
We'll let you off with that one. And you're? Are you all studying at university here, or where you all which university are you at?
Oh, well, I'm having a gap here and then I'll do it.
Oh, lucky you, yeah.
I'm doing high school.
You're still high school?
Yeah. University of Edinburgh.
Studying?
The University. Oh, studying biomedical science.
Biomedical science is very good. I was a molecular biologist. So there you go. And
University of Glasgow studying law.
studying law.
Yeah.
Oh my God! So you over for the day, or are you just?
Oh no, it's holidays.
It's holidays. Of course you are. You're all on vacation now, eh? That's why you got time to pose underneath the greenery. Well, nice speaking to you, ladies.
Aye.
You catch yourself on Joe and Mike's virtual tours. If you want to go and click onto it, you'll see yourself there.
Where do we find it? You'll have about 5K viewers.
Yeah, because we've
internationally.
We've got live in Buenos Aires, so we got some of your Spanish-speaking friends down in your neighbouring countries. We've got Japan, we've got Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United States. So say hello. Give a good Scottish hello. Right, catch you later, ladies.
Thank you.
You're going to give it Joe and Mike's virtual tours. You'll catch us. We're on live now.
Piping Scott tours. Yeah.
Joe and Mike's virtual tours on Facebook. We're live as you're speaking.
Yeah.
So we're going to. Do you know about Badger and Co? Hang around, you might learn something.
You'll see us on YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
Joe and Mike's virtual tours of Scotland.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Okay. So I'm going to talk about this one here. This is the birthplace of one Kenneth Graham, and Kenneth Graham was a novelist. He was a writer, and he started off his childhood on a very kind of sour note. At the age of 5, he happened to lose his mother, and his father, who happened to be an advocate, that was the reason they lived here. It was quite a wealthy part of Edinburgh. He sunk into alcoholism on the death of his wife, who was Kenneth's mother. So they went off to relatives in England and Berkshire, and Kenneth spent the remainder of his childhood and his adulthood down in Berkshire. He is actually well known as being the author of a novel called The Wind in the Willows. Wind in the Willows, and you can see here we've got a phrase from it on here, and The Wind in the Willows, I remember Joe was talking about Beatrix Potter. It is about giving animals and all creatures human characteristics and putting forward a certain message. But before we talk too much about that, I'd like to talk a bit more about his life. He was quite a troubled individual because of his childhood background. And he made a marriage to this lady who was one Elspeth Thompson, and she actually had nobility in her background. She was the sister of the twin sister of the person who was going to be the Duke of Argyll eventually. So she had nobility in her background. Now, she got together with Kenneth. And I don't know if it was going to be a love match. It was more like a marriage of convenience, because she was very much attracted by this chap who she thought was a great achiever. They had a child, and the child was called Alistair, this young child, and he had the nickname of Mouse for whatever reason, and he was blind in one eye, and he had other disabilities as well. So he was a bit isolated. His father, because of his own difficult childhood, didn't really know very much how to respond, and his mother also. So Kenneth read stories to Alistair, or Mouse as he was called, and Alistair would be farmed off to different boarding schools, different schools away from home overnight, and the times he was with his parents would be quite valuable to him, but he just became increasingly isolated. He was bullied. He couldn't relate to the school system at all. And he eventually committed suicide, we think, at the age of 20, poor Alistair. Anyway, getting back to Kenneth Graham, he was one of these individuals who had a very bad relationship eventually with his wife. And of course, we've got other similar stories. We've got Thomas Hardy and his wife, and she never felt loved in the relationship. And of course, we have got the famous John Ruskin relationship and Effie Gray. So there are various thoughts about Kenneth, and that he was maybe closet homosexual, but we don't know for sure. There has been a fairly recent book called The Eternal Boy, The Life of Kenneth Graham by Matthew Denison, and it is actually pulling up all the papers and documents that they can actually find about his life, but he found out that his wife Elspeth destroyed a lot of the documentary creative pieces. In fact, it was said that she wanted to be the inspiration for The Wind in the Willows. The Wind in the Willows, of course, was a great book. It had your characters, like we had Toad, we had Mole, and we had Ratty, and we had Badger, and they all had human characteristics. Toad, or Mr. Toad, was seen one of these lackadaisical people who just wanted to have a great time and would be a fanatic. He would collect cars, he went and thought he could be great with a caravan, and most of his experiences ended up in disaster, and it would be the friends, the supportive friends, that usually had to take the rap. Now, The Wind in the Willows wouldn't have been the sensation it is today had it not been for A.A. Milne, who wrote Toad of Toad Hall, adapted it for the stage, and it has actually been filmed several times, and it has been presented also as a stage show.
So, it is a great stage show, I've seen it.
Yeah. I've read the book, and it can be quite difficult to get into Wind in the Willows, but as you go on with it, it is a bit easier to read. But some say it could have been something to do with a veiled message about socialism, in that Toad was a socialist, and he was doing all the liberal things and meeting with disaster. But we can only speculate. But
I mean, the history is full of troubled authors.
Yes.
And a lot of them coming from Scotland at the time, for the repressed society at the time as well. But do you remember in TV when we were kids, we used to have Toad of Toad Hall features?
I do.
I used to watch it.
Yeah.
I always saw Toad as a bit of a, we'd call him a dilettante nowadays, wasn't he? He was a bit louche.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's animated versions and so on too.
And it's now a restaurant, of course. This house is now a restaurant called Badger & Co.
Called Badger, yeah.
Yep.
And I've got to say this, and he might be listening, and I'm sure he'll take it in good heart, but we've got a friend who we call Badger because he's got a very distinctive haircut, and he is just like Mr. Badger, and we call him that today. So I won't say any more than that, but
they do have sound effects. Because the restaurant's not open at the moment, but if you walk in there, Mike, you might hear the toads going when you walk in. I don't know. You go further in? Maybe it's only when the restaurant is actually open. But as you approach the restaurant, you get the sound of the toads croaking as you walk in there.
I didn't know that. That's good to know.
It's a lovely little restaurant, and the food's really good, and they can cater for larger parties, but table for four. Mm-hmm. I would recommend anywhere in Edinburgh you book in advance.
Oh yeah, especially just now. Yeah.
It's fair to say also, Mike, the festival has started.
Oh yeah, that's right. Edinburgh Festival. You can view that online. There are a few physical events which will be socially distanced, and we have got pop-up venues as well. I think in the usual place like the Meadows, I think perhaps, and other areas around town. So Google it. Go
if you Google Edinburgh Festivals, it'll bring up everything on it. So just Google Edinburgh Festivals, and then the pages will come up for the official, and maybe the Fringes, the Book Festival, just basically everything that's on, and you can join in.
Yeah. So have a look at that. We're missing the festival, of course.
And of course, Nicola Benedetti, one of our great violinists, is performing as well. You may have to pay for that one, I'm not sure, but...
Yeah. I think she's doing a few things. She was Young Musician of the Year. She got star-spotted, Nicola Benedetti, a child protege. Yeah. So we are now wandering down past Rose Street. Remember, we had Thistle Street when we were up there talking about the bar, the Oxford Bar, just up in that part of town. Now we're moving further south.
And of course, for our non-British viewers, Thistle is the national emblem of Scotland. The rose is the national emblem of England. And so with the active union, you've got the thistle and the rose intertwining. And hence we've got Thistle Street and Rose Street.
Yeah. Yeah, the symbolism of that is quite amazing. So now we're coming to Princess Street. Well, this is a tour of Castle Street, so we're not going to go much further. If we look at the building here, the big sandstone building, a very modern block building there, that replaces a building which was a hotel called the Palace Hotel. Now we've got great hotels, great railway station hotels, as many may know. We've got what used to be the North British Hotel, which is now the Balmoral Hotel, the east end of Princess Street. We've got the Caledonian, which is at the west end of Princess Street, and they're always competing to get the best reputation for themselves. Well, we had another player here up until the 1990s, was the Palace Hotel. It was a beautiful building. It was a 19th century building with turrets, like fairy tale turrets on it. But sadly, in 1991, a group of young men broke in to the hotel, and it was all very dark inside. And it was said that they were quite innocent in their breaking in, and that they were going just out of curiosity to see what was there. And to get light, they lit pieces of paper to get light, and then somebody dropped the paper and it just went up in flames, and that was the end of the Palace Hotel. But today we've got this more recent hotel, as you can see here, and you've got quite a lot of that architecture scattered around Edinburgh. Some of it I think is terrible and it doesn't fit in, but I think this one is one of the better ones because it has got a wee bit of a similarity to the original building that was there, and that you can see the curvature like a tower below the flagpole, and it doesn't disturb me quite so much.
No, I think
it's okay.
Yeah, it's not as intrusive as some of the buildings here.
Yeah.
And again, if you are in Edinburgh and you want to come see the fireworks, whether it's for New Year fireworks or the end of summer fireworks, Castle Street is the place to stake your claim because you get the best view of these spectacular fireworks that go off the castle twice a year, at New Year and at the end of August.
Yeah, it's pedestrianised in parts, but it's quite nice, and you can see there's a market, pop-up market here, and that can happen quite a bit. And over Christmas there are various other pop-up attractions which are actually located here too. And beyond that you've got Edinburgh Castle, looking very spectacular today, of course, with the sun in it. And at the right hand side you've got what was the hospital block. Further over you've got a modern cafe block which blends in a bit, and beyond that you've got some of the older buildings. So Edinburgh Castle on its volcanic plug, as we call it. So I think we'll just wrap up there.